Welcome to the Unnamed Podcast, the podcast for the people and by the people. This podcast show is devoted to helping you share words of wisdom, experiences, and the likes as we discuss various hot and pressing topics like love, marriage, health, tech, relationships, trends, randoms, and more. We like to feature the opinions of our listeners no matter the topic because we believe everyone has something to say and we believe that we could learn from each other. I remain your host, Mrs. TIP. In today's episode, we'll be discussing matters of the heart because I feel like the heart is probably the most underrated part of the human body, especially in young people like you and I, because we feel so strong all the time, vibrant, energetic, and the likes, the vibe that we give. And so we feel that, okay, we are in good shape, we are all healthy and all that stuff. I mean, if not for feed farm gangs and maybe power oil adverts on TV, some of us wouldn't even think that our hearts need attention like every other part of our body. Well, today we'll be discussing all of that, and I don't know if I should say inspiration is the word, but today's topic is inspired by late Mrs. Ibidun Ighodalo, whose death shook the entire country in my opinion, because I turned left and I would see tributes and posts, I would see tears, I turned right on social media, everywhere they drew. Like it was so shocking to everybody, including myself. So I decided to start making some research around the supposed cause of her death. According to the media, it was cardiac arrest, and so I somehow discovered that I barely knew anything about cardiac arrest. I know, yes, it's targeted towards the heart. It's a heart disease or a heart problem, but I never really knew much about cardiac. I only know arrests, okay, because of So her death kind of inspired me to want to carry out some research about this whole cardiac thing and the heart. So I kind of put up a post on my TL asking doctor friends, and one of them did us the good of replying my messages. And while we began chatting, I discovered that she really, she had a good knowledge about this thing, and I knew it was something that every other person needed to hear. So, here we are right now. Now, for those of us who probably don't know who Ibidun Ighodalo is, I'm just going to give a brief bio about her, okay, before we move on. Late Mrs. Ibidun was first a beauty queen. Yes, she was, I think she went in for all this Miss World, Miss Nigeria, all this kind of stuffs. And I think at some point she won, yeah, because man, I'm like, should I say I'm tripping now, like my husband would say. Like, her beauty is, anyone who saw her beauty could attest to it. Like, you can't just be jealous. You would just admit it that this woman is a fine woman, and that was how she was. Her smile, really very gorgeous thing. So yeah, she was first a beauty queen who then turned into an event planner. She became an event planner managing the famous Elizabeth R event company, and they are more into decors, planning, whatever kind of. And for me, it's like one of the top companies when it comes to event planning. Yeah, because I've seen some magnificent weddings, and when I learned, I didn't even know she was the owner of that company until recently, like until her death. Because I used to admire their decors, like it was so mad. I think there was this one I saw one time on TV while watching Nigerian weddings on one of these aftermatch stations, and I noticed that there was this ice thing. I don't know how they got the whole thing. I think the bride wanted the ice themed wedding, and so there was this ice statue that was so. I was like, damn man, whoever planned this wedding, it's not smart thing. Okay, so but yeah, she was CEO Elizabeth R Company, and then became wife and pastor of Trinity House Church in Lagos. She was married to Pastor Ibidun Ighodalo. That family. Well, we thank God. Until her death, she was also founder of a foundation that was targeted at helping couples with infertility challenges in their marriage, like couples who probably couldn't give birth to children and all of those things, anything fertility or infertility issues. She had that foundation, and the amazing thing I learned about that foundation, or I knew about the foundation ever since, was the fact that they would actually build, like they will handle the bills for you. That's like God doing something, okay? Like, you just come with your challenge, they'll hear your story and help you out with whatever medical cost it would need. Okay, and that was really very amazing for me. Well, she had that company and she really was managing it alongside her husband until that. So yeah, that's a brief about late Mrs. Ibidun Ighodalo. She was really a blessing. A lot of people who had so much to say about her. That was just what I could do. She was a blessing in our time, in our generation, and well, we thank God for where she is right now. And so she was denoted to have, passed out in her hotel room somewhere in Port Harcourt, and what we learned was that it was cardiac arrest. And so I started asking because she was 39, she just turned 40 some weeks ago, and her birthday was celebrated. Posthumous birthday was celebrated. Okay, so I started asking myself questions like, can cardiac actually arrest young people who probably never even had any kind of form of idea or any form of sickness of that nature or any heart disease problem? And so we'll be discussing that with Dr. Grace, all the way from Georgia. I couldn't really get Dr. Grace to probably have a live session with me, but yeah, that's because she's very busy. And I had to beg her, like squeeze her out of her time to just send me a record. Okay, so what I did was I sent her 10 questions or so, or 11, and I had her answer everything and then just sent it back to me as a file. So we're going to be hearing, the next voice we'll be listening to is Dr. Grace. And please, if you're really interested, like someone was already telling me that her heart is doing that one kind. If your heart has been shaking, shifting, doing one kind, please listen keenly to what she has, because she really said a lot, and I made sure she kind of broke it down to something we could relate with. I'm not talking those doctors that come out blowing medical big dramas. Okay, she kind of mute some of that, so you should be able to relate to it. So over to you, Dr. Grace.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Grace and I'm calling from Georgia. Okay, so we're going to be talking about cardiac arrest. So what is cardiac arrest? It is the abrupt loss of heart function in a person who may or may not have been diagnosed with heart disease. It can come suddenly or in the wake of other symptoms. It is usually fatal, if appropriate steps aren't taken immediately. So what are the cardiac arrest symptoms? So what I can say is the first sign is the loss of consciousness, that's fainting, or in medical term, syncope. There's unexplained shortness of breath, and at the same time, you also have the heartbeat or pulse can be felt. So at this time, no heartbeat or pulse can be felt. Some people may experience or have racing heartbeat, or they feel dizzy or lightheaded just before they faint. So within an hour before the sudden cardiac arrest, some people have chest pain, shortness of breath, and nausea. And when patients are describing this nausea, I'm going to quote how they tag or term it. They'll tell you it is feeling sick to the stomach. That's how they term. Nausea is like the medical term we use, but feeling sick to the stomach is how the person explains it to you, or vomiting as well. So the next question and to answer is, if you have no bad medical records, can you have cardiac arrest? Yes, someone can. So what are the cardiac arrest causes? Is termed etiologies, like what causes it. So etiology can be different types. It can be from different stages, like maybe there's the structural cause or there is mechanical cause. But what are just the cause or onsets of all of it that can lead to cardiac arrest? So what are they? It can be from any known heart condition. But most times it's mostly from diseased heart electrical systems that have malfunctioned. So this malfunction now allows your heart to have an abnormal heart reading. So this abnormal heart reading can be ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation. So this ventricular tachycardia is when your heart has a beat that is 3 or more consecutive beats at a rate faster than 100 beats per minute. So normal heartbeat should be between 60 to 100. Between 60 to 100 is tag normal. So when it is lower than 60, it is tagged bradycardia. But when it is higher than 100, it is tachycardia. And there are even more when it is much higher. Like when it is much higher, there are also those ones as well. So there are just like different types. So when your heart is beating more than 100 beats per minute, that's a problem. So it's breathing boom 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 boom, like the beat it's too fast. Let me use the word like that. It's way too fast. So that is leading for congestion of your heart and all of that. Your heart working 10 times faster than it should, or even 20 times faster than it should. So other causes of cardiac arrest can also be from extreme slowing of your heart beating, which I already said, bradycardia. So, like I said, when your heart beat is lower, that's lower than 60, it's bradycardia. And so there are other causes, such as when you have congenital abnormalities of your coronary arteries, like if your arteries are positioned improperly, or if a person is born with one coronary artery, it can lead to this. And then there's also like genetic disorders like connective tissue problems, like people that have Marfan syndrome. When they have these people that have Marfan syndrome, they have connective tissue problems, and they are usually thin and long, and they have long tremors. Like let me use the word, they have long hands and long legs. So Marfan syndrome has to connective tissue. So these people tend to be long and tall, and everything is long. Their hands, their structure, their legs, seat is just long. So they can also have this, and another main culprit of cardiac arrest is I can call this main because most people don't even know they have this. It's known as the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So this hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is when your heart is thickened. There's like a abnormal thickening of your heart muscle. So your heart is thick. The inner layers of your heart are not getting enough blood supply. So with this, it can lead to cardiac arrest. A lot of people don't know that hypertrophic cardiomyopathy can lead to cardiac arrest. I can call it the what word should I use? I can call it the hijacker of cardiac arrest. Like it hijacks, it's hidden. Many people don't even know they have it. So you just suddenly hear somebody just faint, and that's it. Person died from cardiac arrest. Exactly that. So there are other causes of it as well, like some medications can cause your heart to beat faster. Like some medications can lead to arrhythmias, and these arrhythmias, which is what I already explained, like the ventricular tachycardia, when your heart is beating faster or lower, or all of those things. So when you are taking those drugs, right, so they can have like a pro-arrhythmic effect, and when this happens, it can lead to your heart. They call it opposite effect of the drug. So it works, and then it gives an opposite effect, and then causes problems, and then induces the cardiac arrest. There are so many causes, like I already explained to you before. There's electrical abnormalities also, like some people that have the Wolff-Parkinson syndrome, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, so to say. And then there's also the long QT syndrome, where these are mostly electrical problems, abnormality problems, when there's problem with the electrical conductivity. So the conductivity of the heart has problem with your QT in the reading. So normally in the reading we have the PQRST reading. So when now there's a problem in the QT reading is when you can also have cause cardiac arrest. There's also blood vessel abnormalities problem, but this is rare. Blood vessel own is rare, so you don't really need to go deep into it. Okay. I can also add that if you use some certain recreational drugs, they can also cause sudden cardiac arrest. Even in healthy people, they can cause cardiac arrest. Recreational drugs, like the recreational drugs now. We all know recreational drugs that people use, cocaine and morphines and the rest. So it can induce cardiac arrest. There's also if you have stress as well. Stress can also cause it as well. So next question is not noticeable warning symptoms. The noticeable warning symptoms can be chest pain on exertion, and this can happen, let's say, between 4 weeks and 1 hour before a person can have the sudden cardiac arrest. So you would have been feeling this unexplained chest pain when you are doing something. So when it said chest pain on exertion, it means chest pain when you are doing something. Let's say you're exercising and you start feeling chest pain, or you're walking down the stairs, you're feeling chest pain. You're straining yourself, so you'll be experiencing chest pain. Then comes the unexplained fainting. You just faint. Then another noticeable sign is, which most people ignore, is family history of premature death from the heart disease. So let me give an example. Like maybe somebody in their family, let's use like great grandfather had just died all of a sudden, and then they said it was just heart problem. Like nobody really looked into it. Then the father died, unexplained, nothing, the same way. So the thing is, when you notice such kind of somebody just dies in your family like that, just like that, and then you go to the hospital and they tell you, or maybe an autopsy or what, and they start saying, he died of, maybe most cases of this type, maybe it's usually from congenital type, that is genetic type, like the thickened heart muscles, or let me use the English word, thickened heart muscles, that they are enlarged. When it is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, but the English term is enlarged thickened cardiac muscles. So most times is when these people die from this, or from the congenital coronary artery, the coronary artery one as well. That's the congenital coronary artery abnormalities too. So most times it's either of these two, and people don't know. So it's unexplained. You just hear, oh yeah, person in this family just died. Then the next, or you hear, oh, the men in this family died like this. So when you have such kind of cases, you have to look into it. Go to the hospital. You need to see our cardiologist. So then they will check there'll be physical exams, different types to check your heart and all, just to be sure that you're not at risk. You don't have any risk factor, like genetic factor for that. So these are the signs I can say that you should look out for. Then the next question is, can it happen to anyone at any age? Yes, it can, but the risk factor is greater among certain people. For example, it's more likely if you've had sudden cardiac arrest before, and it's more likely if it's an inherited type. That means if a parent has had it, definitely a child will have it. At least one child. It's just a probability. So you just have to look out for this. That's why genetic factors ones, which I already mentioned, are hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and the coronary artery and abnormalities. So these are all congenital. Anyways, it means you'll be born with it. The next one is, can all sudden cardiac arrest end in death? Not all will end in death. Why? Because if intervention is done, then it won't end in death. It's when there's no intervention, there's no someone isn't looking out for the signs, isn't watching the signs, then there will be death. But once you already know and there's intervention, there won't be death. So the ways for this prevention is, if the let's just say if the arrest is curtailed, that means if you get help at the 1 minute before the person will go, like before the person will finally give up, at least at that 1 minute intervention can actually save the person by the use of automated external defibrillator. Then the person has a chance to live. So the next question is asking, is cardiac arrest different from heart attack? Yes, it is. How? I'll tell you how. So heart attack stems from circulation problem or problem of the heart, where there's a blockage in the coronary artery severely, and this reduces or cuts off blood flow to the heart, thereby damaging the heart muscles. While sudden cardiac arrest is due to electrical problem in the heart. It happens when your electrical signals that control the heart's pumping ability is cut short, or is short, or let me use the word, is short circuit. So how will I put it? So all of a sudden your heart is maybe dangerously fast or dangerously too slow, causing your heart ventricles. How will I put it? It causes the heart ventricles main pumping chambers to either flutter or quiver instead of pump blood in a coordinated or conducted fashion. So the next question is, can stress or anxiety cause cardiac arrest? Yes, it's part of the causes which I already mentioned in the previous question on that causes. Yes, they do. So if you have trauma, like if you have trauma from like a stress-induced trauma, if you are dehydrated, let's say blood loss, all of any form of stress, physical activity, like let me say people that are so active and then they decide, oh, I'm going to exercise 5 hours a day. 5 hours, why? At least in a week, try in a week you can exercise 3 to 5 times. At least maximum of 1 hour is okay. And this exercise can either be walking or you can do HIIT, HIIT, all of that. But no, some people want to do extra. Most people that you just hear, oh, they were exercising and they slum and died. Is this kind of form of stress-induced cardiac arrest that they suffer from, not knowing that maybe they have like a genetic backing of the problem, like something already induced it. So you have it genetically, and then you helped it. You are the one that inducted the process. So that's it. So my advice I would give is to pay attention to any symptoms like chest pain, blackouts, like when you are having chest pain or blackouts when you are exerting yourself, like when you are stressing yourself. You should look out for like your heart beat. If it's like now you are staying and your heart is beating, you are just hearing the beat is so fast, it's faster than normal. You should look out for that. And if you are becoming easily fatigued, or you are becoming weak, you are feeling dizzy all of a sudden, and then you are gasping for air, which is shortness of breath or dyspnea, you should look out for all of this. And then if you spot any of this, you should at least go to the hospital and try and see a cardiologist at least. You should do this. So there should be caution of this. Then that's the advice I can give. And that you should refrain from too much physical activity. At least you should, yes, you should have physical activity, but at least in a week, try to exercise 3 to 5 times. Don't overdo it. When something is too much, it's a problem. It's too little, it's a problem. So just be moderate. That's my advice. Thank you.
Well, so far so good. Thank you so much, Dr. Grace, for helping us understand better how much attention our heart needs. And if you didn't follow very well, please, I'm sure you heard the part of excessive exercise and how we should be very moderate in doing our exercises. Don't be too much, don't be too less, just do enough. And she kept on repeating 30, at least 30 minutes, maybe in a week, 3 days, max. Okay, so please let's be very mindful of our health in that manner. Okay, so one more question for Dr. Grace. And that question is, are there ways one could actually take care of the heart? If yes, how? And so we'll just listen to Dr. Grace attend to this last question before we round up. So over to you, Dr. Grace.
Are there ways to take care of your heart? And if yes, how? Okay, to answer this question, yes, there are ways to care for your heart. And how I'm going to talk about it. First and foremost is you have to eat a heart healthy food. When I say eat a heart healthy food, I mean you should have a heart healthy diet. Like your diet should be heart healthy. And anything you're eating, you're considering your heart, such as eating more fruits and veggies, whole grains, legumes and nuts, and then you cut down on salty foods and fatty foods, which I will come to. So salty food, like I said, fatty food, such as ham, bacon, sausage, hot dog, and anything salty fish, anything salty. Because the next point is that you have to eat less salt. So when I say salty food, why? Because when you eat more salt in your food, it can lead to high blood pressure, and in turn it gives you an increased risk of having cardiovascular or developing cardiovascular diseases or heart diseases, as well as even stroke. So as well as stroke, as well as hypertension. High salt intake is a very high risk for having hypertension. When you have high salt intake, you keep taking it, at the long run you develop hypertension. So it's like number one key findings when you have high salt intake. So too much salt, like I said before in the previous question I answered, when something is too much is a problem, too little is a problem. So everything you are doing has to be moderate, on a normal level. Don't overdo anything. So the next thing I'll say is just to create awareness about this, is keep your saturated fat to a bare minimum. Saturated fats are, how do I put it now? Saturated fats are tagged, like call them unhealthy fats, as well as trans fats. Both of them are tagged unhealthy fats. So we all need fats in our diet. Like we all need fats in our diet to be able to for the fats to undergo some processes, but we need them in bare minimum. Like it should not be much, because this fat, we have the high fat, we have the high DL, and we have the low LDL. So we have the HDL and LDL. So you have to be really careful when you're taking in fats. So saturated fats and trans fats are tagged or termed unhealthy fats. So you have to take them at bare minimum. Why do I say this? Your body needs healthy fats for energy and other functions, which like I already mentioned. But when you take too much fats, as let's say you take too much of this, unhealthy fat, or let me not target unhealthy. You are supposed to take fats, right? So let me say you take too much of this fat, it can cause for them to be cholesterol buildup. And when there's cholesterol buildup, what happens? It leads to obstruction. It leads to plaque formation, which is atherosclerosis. And when this happens, there'll be narrowing And when there's narrowing, it means that the blood supply will be cut short, or some organs will not be receiving blood, some arteries won't be receiving enough of the circulatory process is supposed to go through, so that it can get energy, oxygen, everything. So because of this, like I said, when it has this build up in your arteries, there's a problem. So saturated fats, they raise your LDL, which I already mentioned that is in your system. They raise your LDL, which is tagged low density protein, low density lipoprotein, and then the HDL, which I mentioned, is the high lipoprotein. So saturated fat increases your LDL, and when they increase your LDL, which is a bad, in quotes, bad cholesterol, what happens? It means they are at increased risks of having cardiovascular problem or heart problems. So let me remind you that these saturated fats are mostly found or seen in solid form in room temperature. So you can just imagine. So you have them like your let me come from foods, normal foods like your beef, your cheese, your butter, your pan. I'm not saying beef is bad. I'm just saying when you're eating beef, if you want to eat beef, eat healthy parts. Some people would want everything. For some people is just over exaggerated. Somebody wants to eat beef, eat a normal size portion. No, somebody will eat 3 people's portion. What happened? Please, everything normal. Pizza, baked goods, palm oil, that are in room, that are solidified. There's those ones that are packaged, and then they have this packaged, rebranded form, packaged and looking nice. You should be very careful of them. Then the next is to increase your physical activity. I already mentioned that a lot. Please increase your physical activity at least in a week. Exercise 3 to 5 times, and your minimum time should be 30 minutes. I said it before. Please do not overdo it. Don't go and do 7 hours exercise straight. You will break down. It's not even a problem. Exercising already makes you sore, your whole body is paining, your joints, everywhere is paining you. So don't overdo it. Please don't stretch your muscles. Don't overstretch them, because doing exercise already is stretching them. You're now overstretching. You will not be able to walk the next day. Try to avoid tobacco use and start smoking of cigarettes. And also avoid secondhand smoke. A lot of people are not smokers, but they inhale secondhand smoke. Please, if it's avoidable, avoid secondhand smoke, because there's a cue to this. There's a cue. The person smoking it is at risk of getting cardiovascular disease and all, but you inhaling it is at much higher risk, because you're getting the passiveness of this. You're just inhaling. He's puffing and blowing out, and there's a process that's going through. Yours is just inhaling this. So there's also another process. So if you can avoid it, avoid secondhand smoke. That's inhaling any tobacco, smoke, or cigarette, whatever form. Also have your blood pressure and blood sugar checked. So you should check it regularly. Why this is important for you to maintain a healthy heart? Because some people don't exhibit symptoms of high blood pressure, even if they already have it. So these people are tagged or termed asymptomatic, meaning they are without symptoms. So, and you would not know that you already have a cardiovascular problem, and then one day you just hear boom, always something just happened. That's because he wasn't aware, he was asymptomatic. So regularly, to avoid such cases of stories that touch, always check your blood pressure regularly and your sugar level, because checking your sugar level is in order to avoid avoid not knowing that you're diabetic, you know, because when you have increased sugar level and all, you it shows that the person is diabetic and all. So all of these things is to keep everything in check, so that if you are, if it is going above, your GP, your general practitioner, that's your doctor, your personal doctor, will tell you, oh, your sugar level is too high, you have to cut down on this, cut down on that, cut down on that, or your blood pressure is already too high, because um, there are stages for us to know when somebody is already hypertensive. So there's called pre-hypertensive stage, then there is a hypertension 1 stage, and then there's the second stage. Pre-hypertensive is between so normally you should be your blood pressure should be 120 over 80 or 110 over 80, 110 over 70, should be in this range. But when you now have like above 120 to 129, you are tagged pre-hypertensive, and then when you are 130 and above like that, you are tagged in the stage 1 of hypertension already. And then when it's 150, you're already in the stage 2, and then 160 and above is stage 3, which is already final. So you can see this. You see there are stages to everything. This is criteria used in saying, oh, this person is this or that. So please be checking your blood pressure. And then okay, so if you also have to be checking your weight, please, if you are overweight. So people don't know this. So your BMI, meaning your body mass index, is the measure used in checking if your weight is healthy. So your BMI, what it does is that it measures your height and your weight to work out if your weight is healthy. So what we do is your weight in kilograms over your height in meters squares. So using this, we have like another stage for this. So we have normal BMI. So normal BMI should be ranging 18.5 to 24.9. Overweight BMI is from 25 to 29.9, and then obese means from 30 to 39.9. On above, so you're obese with this range. So try and check your BMI. Try and know your height so you'll be able to get this. With this, if you once you know that, oh, I'm in this range, I'm in 25, you know that, oh, you're already overweight, so you try to cut it down and come down to normal, which is 18. And then when it is less than 18.5, it means you're underweight. It means you have to eat to be able to become normal. Then I also have to emphasize on central obesity. Central obesity or adiposity is when you have those that have protruding stomach, or have stored fat in their abdominal area. So here, when your waist circumference is more than 80 centimeters for females and 90 cm for males, this is how we use this measurement. So when you have a very high waist circumference, it points out that you have an intra-abdominal fat, which I mentioned, when you have fat in the abdominal area. So, and with this, it's associated with higher rates of you again developing cardiovascular diseases. So please try to reduce your diet from like bad fats, too much junk food is saturated, it's bad fat. So try to reduce all of these. Try to incorporate physical activity. Physical activities involve walking, jogging, bricks walking. There are different types of walking. There's walking, there's bricks walking, there's jogging, there's doing form of exercise. Dancing is an exercise. You can dance if you can do it for 30. And see, just make sure that you are active. You're not staying put, because eternal life is not good. A sedentary life isn't good. Just sitting down in one place and receiving AC. From there you enter into the car and then you go back. It's like the same routine all the time. At least try and be active. to avoid all of these things. With this, you can also avoid so many other problems as well. So, and I need to add that these bad fats, right? These bad fat, they contain 9 calories per gram of a fat, and that is like twice the amount you find in carbohydrates and proteins. So you can just see twice the amount you find in carbohydrates and proteins, where you also have a little bit of, you can get the good fats from. So with this, it means that when you are choosing the food you want to eat, you have to limit saturated fat at least to less than 10% of your daily calories to further reduce your heart disease risks. You should also limit the fat to at least 7%. So when you are choosing your food, choose food with less saturated fat and trans fat, any form of bad fat, please. And then people that always buy, let's say, go to the malls and buy packaged food and all, try to be reading the label content. Always check out when you're reading the label content, anything you're buying, please check out for the saturated fat to see the amount. I already said normally it is 9 grams. It's 9 grams is what each bad fat contains. So when you see 9 grams there, you already know that it's too much. At least if you see 5, you know it's good. So because 5 is the daily limit, at least you should take for that's the daily limit. Let me just say that's the daily limit. Why 20% is too much? So let's just try to live a good, healthy life. Eat healthy, exercise, mind what you eat, junk food. I'm not saying once in a while is not bad. At least once in a while. Don't make it an everyday habit. Oh, today I'll eat this. Oh, tomorrow I'll eat this. If you keep doing like that, you are putting yourself, your heart at risk. And then, lo and behold, you now have the congenital one. That's the genetic one you are born with, one that you inherited. That's a problem. Thank you very much.
Well, if you didn't hear anything, I heard a lot. I heard that saturated fat should be reduced to the barest minimum. Okay, fat is good, fat is necessary, but not too much. Okay, and she kept on repeating, not too much, not too little, moderate. So in everything you do, please do it moderately. Exercise moderate. If it's intake of fat, as much as we need it, do it in a moderate form. Avoid tobacco use, especially secondhand smoke. Okay, and she explained that is when someone else is doing the smoking and you are there inhaling. Okay, and I for one, I really don't like being in such an environment. I'll just get upset with whatever or whoever is smoking. I don't have a problem with you smoking. I have a problem with you giving me whatever excess or whatever output you're, smoking out and stuff. So yeah, please avoid secondhand smoking. Because you are at a higher risk. I heard that very well. And then she also mentioned to me that she forgot to include alcohol intake. Yes, on this very table, I know a lot of people grumbling, but yeah, if you cannot do without alcohol at all, please reduce your intake of alcohol. Be mindful, okay? In other words, be mindful of your alcohol intake. Reduce it. Don't do excess. Don't do little. Do what? Moderate, okay? And regular check of blood pressure, BP, and even your BMI. BMI, she said, or as we know, is body mass index. Very important. I had 3 things actually. Your BMI should be between 18.5 and 24.9. Overweight BMI is between 25 to 29.9, and obese is 30 to 39.9. So please know your BMI, and if you've not been checking that, like me, I'm a defaulter of this. If you've not been checking your BMI, please try to do that. And blood sugar. There are home devices that people get now, like the blood sugar device, and it's just one small pierce. You just have to pierce yourself. Someone has to pierce you and put it on the machine, reads it. And then your BP as well. Very, very. These devices have actually been made thanks to technology, very handy and homely. So we could actually get those things. they're not very expensive. Regular check of your blood pressure, blood sugar, and your BMI. Thank you so much, Dr. Grace, for helping us out with understanding. I know for one that I've gained, and I'll be putting some of these things to practice as much as I can afford. I really appreciate your help. Thank you. I know you're a very busy woman, but thank you so much for giving us, as much as you did. Thank you. So, if you're just joining us, or if this is your first time of listening, you just listened to the Unnamed podcast, and today we talked about matters of the heart, okay, cardiac arrest and how it's different from heart attack, and how we should care for our heart and ways to live healthier. Okay, please, like I would always say, please rate this podcast. It's very necessary that you please rate us on your various listening platforms, and you can follow us via Instagram and Twitter. My host account is _ Mrs. TIP. Yes, the podcast now has its own Instagram handle, and it's TU Podcast. That's the Unnamed Podcast _ at TU Podcast _ You can find out only on Instagram for now, and our email remains kekand@outlook.com. kekand@outlook.com. Or if you want to join the podcast, or you have something you feel we could actually listen to or learn from, please don't hold it back. You could actually email me, and I'll definitely be replying. Okay, I don't snob. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you learned thing 2 or 3. Till we come your way again, this remains the best entangled bed. You know what I say. Peace.